Take a deep breath for a second. Not a rushed one, but a slow inhale that reminds you you're still here. You're still breathing. And maybe, just maybe, this moment is exactly where you're supposed to be. Now let me ask you something you might not hear often. Where does your mind go when no one's around? Not what you say out loud, not what you show on the outside, but that quiet place no one sees. What do you let play on repeat up there? Most of us never really stop to examine the direction of our thoughts. We just assume they're passengers we're stuck with. But what if they're actually steering the ship? What if the course of your life is being shaped not by what's happening to you, but by what's happening inside you? You see, from the minute your eyes open in the morning, something invisible begins. Thoughts start moving like traffic, some familiar, some chaotic, some subtle, and disguised as truth. You think about the tasks waiting for you, the people you're going to face, maybe even something you regret or wish had gone differently. And sometimes, without even noticing, you've already planted seeds for the day, seeds of peace or seeds of panic. You could be brushing your teeth, cooking eggs, scrolling through your phone, and still, your mind is racing. And here's what we rarely consider. Those thoughts don't just pass through. They build something. They shape how you speak to others, how you treat yourself, and how you respond to the world around you. And if we're being honest, some of the hardest fights we face happen entirely in silence. They don't show up as arguments or visible wounds. They show up as tension in the chest, as a voice that says, "You're falling behind," as a heaviness you can't name. I know what that feels like. We smile in public, but our minds whisper lies in private. You're not good enough. You're too late. No one sees you. And maybe those thoughts didn't start with us. Maybe they were planted years ago, but somehow we took ownership of them. We made them familiar, and now they're the background noise of our daily lives. But here's something I've come to realize. Just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it's true. Let me say that again for your heart. Just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it deserves a seat at the table. In Isaiah 26:3, it says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." That word steadfast carries weight. It means unwavering, anchored, not pulled in 100 directions by fear or doubt. That kind of peace doesn't come from everything going right. It comes from deciding where your focus stays. And you have more control over that than you think. You are not a slave to every idea that pops into your head. You can choose what to hold on to and what to let go. It's not about pretending the hard things aren't there. It's about refusing to let them rule you. Have you ever noticed how easily we believe our fears, but how slowly we embrace hope? It's like we trust anxiety more than God's promises. We prepare for the worst before we make space for what's good. But that mindset doesn't serve us. It traps us. Romans 8:6 says, "The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace." That's not a small difference. That's the difference between merely surviving and truly living. So let's ask ourselves honestly, what's been governing my thoughts lately? Have I been walking through my days repeating inner scripts that drag me down? Have I allowed fear to be my filter for every new opportunity or challenge? Because you weren't created to be led by fear. You weren't designed to live in a loop of mental exhaustion, constantly bracing for disaster. That's not strength, it's survival. And it's okay to admit when that's where you are. But you don't have to stay there. You can start small. You can begin by noticing, by asking, is this thought leading me toward hope or away from it? Does this voice sound like grace or like guilt? You can learn to question your thoughts the same way you'd question a stranger knocking on your front door at midnight. Who sent you? Why are you here? Do you belong in my space? In Philippians 4-8, Paul gives a filter for our minds. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure. Think about such things. He's not saying ignore pain or pretend life isn't hard. He's saying don't build your home in fear. Don't give anxiety the keys to your front door. You see, your mind is sacred ground. What you let grow there matters. What you rehearse, you begin to believe. And what you believe, you start to live. So if you've been feeling distant from peace lately, maybe it's not because peace left. Maybe it's because your thoughts stopped letting it in. This isn't about fixing yourself overnight or having perfect thoughts. This is about starting a conversation with yourself and with the one who knows you best. It's about beginning to listen differently, to pause when your mind spirals, and to gently turn it back toward what is steady, toward what is eternal, toward truth. And maybe that starts now. Let's pause here together. I want you to take a moment, not to fix anything, not to analyze, not even to pray just yet, but simply to notice. Notice what's been echoing in your head lately, the quiet phrases you hear when the room is silent, the things you tell yourself when no one else is around to hear. Sometimes it's not what people say to us that hurts the most, it's what we repeat to ourselves afterward. Maybe your mind has become a collection of old tapes. Tapes you didn't record, but you've been playing for years. Words from childhood, from broken relationships, from moments of failure. And without realizing it, you've started narrating your life through that same voice. You wake up already defeated, already questioning, already bracing. But what if you didn't have to keep replaying those tracks? What if there's a different voice? One that speaks with clarity, not confusion. With love, not accusation. With truth, not torment. That voice exists. And it isn't yours, it's His. 1 Corinthians 2:16 says, "But we have the mind of Christ." That verse used to feel impossible to me. The mind of Christ? What does that even mean? I used to think it meant I had to think perfect thoughts all the time, or be immune to worry. But now I see it differently. To have the mind of Christ is to see like He sees. To look at myself through His compassion, not condemnation. To look at others with grace before judgment. To look at my future not through the lens of fear, but of faith. That kind of thinking doesn't just show up, it's something we practice. Something we surrender into, one layer at a time. So today, right now, let's practice. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to feel anything dramatic. Just speak from that quiet place inside, the one that's tired of carrying this all alone. Let's pray. Lord, I bring you my mind just as it is. Not cleaned up, not polished, not rehearsed. Just real. You already know what's been weighing on me. You see the thoughts I tried to silence, and the ones I've gotten too used to. You see the moments when I smile on the outside, while drowning internally. And yet, you don't flinch. You don't walk away. You stay. You don't demand that I fix myself before I come to you. You invite me to bring it all. So here it is, God. I give you the racing thoughts that won't settle when I try to sleep. The voices that tell me I'll never be enough. The memories I've buried, but still haunt me when I least expect. The shame I pretend doesn't affect me anymore, but it does. The guilt I carry like a backpack full of bricks, even when I know you've already forgiven me. I lay down the endless loop of what ifs and why nots. I surrender the tendency to overthink everything, to control, to predict, to rehearse every outcome, just to avoid disappointment. You didn't create me to live like this. Your word says in Isaiah 55:8-9 that your thoughts are higher than mine. That means I can trust that what you think about me is fuller, kinder, and more true than anything I've ever imagined. So I choose today, even if trembling, to believe your thoughts over mine. I give you the bitterness I didn't mean to hold, the comparisons that steal my joy, the inner critic that never seems satisfied, the fear that paralyzes me before I even start. God, rewire the way I think, not just in the big moments, but in the ordinary ones. The small, quiet choices, the automatic thoughts, the first response. Let even those be touched by your hand. Romans 12:2 reminds me not to conform to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of my mind. I don't just want improvement, I want transformation. A mind reshaped, healed, made new. One that walks in step with you, not with old wounds. When my thoughts say I've messed up too much, let your voice say, my grace is sufficient. When my mind screams, I'm alone, whisper, I will never leave you nor forsake you. When everything in me wants to quit, remind me, I am doing a new thing, can you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. Lord, let me perceive it. Even if I don't fully feel it yet, even if the evidence hasn't shown up, let me think like someone who knows the ending will be good, because you are the author. Help me not to make a home in fear. Help me to stop nurturing negative thoughts as if they're my only truth. Let me build my thoughts on the foundation of who you are, not who I was, or what happened to me. And when I mess up, because I will, let me return quickly. Let me notice when I start spiraling. Let me pause. Let me invite you back into the center, again and again. I don't want my mind to be a battleground where I lose daily. I want it to be a sanctuary where truth lives, where peace takes root, where you are welcome. You are not a visitor here, Jesus. You are the keeper, the healer, the author, the protector. So take the keys, take the old scripts, take the assumptions and the fears, tear down the lies I've treated as facts, and in their place, build something new, something rooted in grace, something that frees. Let my thoughts reflect the hope I've been given. Let them align with the light you've placed inside me. And if I start to drift back into old patterns, speak louder. Interrupt me with truth. Surprise me with peace. Catch me in the act of worrying and remind me that you're still in control. You've brought me this far, and you're not done. There's something powerful about silence. Not the awkward kind where you feel pressure to fill the space. I'm talking about the silence that invites you to listen, to lean in, to become aware. It's in that space, when the world quiets for just a moment, that we begin to hear what's really going on beneath the surface. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to confuse noise with truth? We live in a world that never stops talking. Notifications, opinions, headlines, conversations, comparisons. It all moves fast. And if we're not careful, we start absorbing it all without filtering anything. The thoughts come in disguised, dressed in logic, or wrapped in emotion, but not everything that enters your mind belongs there. Some thoughts show up sounding reasonable. You're just being realistic. Others are more cutting. Why even try? You know how this ends. Some wear the mask of self-protection, telling you to stay guarded, stay small, stay quiet. And the most dangerous ones? They don't shout, they whisper. They blend in so well, you barely notice them. But they change how you move through life. They harden you, shrink you, distance you from people. And from God, it's like walking around with tinted glasses and not realizing everything you're seeing is being filtered through a cracked lens. That's why Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Your heart, your mind, your internal life, it's not a passive space. It's the command center. What lives there eventually shows up in your words, your choices, your relationships, your faith. And this isn't just about positive thinking. This is about truth thinking, about learning to recognize when your thoughts aren't aligned with the one who made you. You see, the voice of God is never frantic. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't manipulate or shame. It doesn't demand perfection or punish your struggle. The voice of God always leads with love, even when it's correcting. It brings light, not confusion. It builds you up from the inside out. So the question is, are you hearing that voice? And if not, What's getting in the way? Sometimes we hear fear so often, we forget there's another frequency. We assume anxiety is just part of life. We expect rejection before we've even knocked on the door. We carry thoughts that are too heavy because we've never paused long enough to ask, who gave me this to carry? But what if today was the day you started paying attention? What if, instead of immediately believing the thought that says, I'm failing, you stopped and asked, is that something God would say to me? Would your shepherd say, you'll never be enough? Would the one who knit you together whisper, you're falling behind? Of course not. He's the same God who says in Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope. You are not forgotten, not overlooked, not unworthy. But the way you think about yourself can either echo that truth or drown it out. It takes practice to catch those subtle thoughts before they take root. It takes awareness to say, wait, this doesn't sound like love. This doesn't sound like peace. And when you catch it, you can interrupt it. That's where the Holy Spirit steps in, not as a loud alarm, but as a gentle nudge, a whisper back. That's not who you are. You start to develop a habit of listening differently. You begin each day not by checking your phone, but by checking your focus. Instead of letting your first thoughts be, what do I need to get done? Or what's going wrong? You ask, Lord, what are you speaking today? And it doesn't need to be complicated. Sometimes it's a verse. Sometimes it's a phrase that anchors you. Sometimes it's a moment of stillness before the chaos begins. Like Psalm 143:8 says, let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Let that be your starting point. Because if you don't anchor your mind early, the day will decide for you. Your mood, your reactions, your peace, it will all drift based on external winds. But when you've heard from God first, you carry a different rhythm, a steadiness that's not easily shaken. And even when the day hits hard, and it will, you won't crumble, because your inner world has been fortified, not by positive thinking, not by control, but by truth. You begin to walk differently. You forgive faster. You pause before reacting. You don't spiral so quickly when the unexpected happens. That's what happens when your thought life becomes a sacred space, not a chaotic one. You start to live from the inside out, not outside in. And over time, those small moments of noticing, interrupting, and redirecting your thoughts build something beautiful. A mind that doesn't run wild, but walks in peace. A heart that hears God's voice before it hears the world's. A soul that knows deeply that it is safe. So even now, as you're reading this, ask yourself, where has my mind been living lately? What voices have I allowed to grow loud? And most of all, am I ready to think a new way? Not a perfect way, not a flawless way, but a way that follows the voice of love instead of fear, the voice of truth instead of shame, the voice of Jesus instead of the echo of the past. Because peace isn't the absence of struggle, it's the presence of God in the middle of it. And it begins right here in your thoughts. You made it to this moment. And that matters more than you think. Maybe you didn't realize how much your thoughts were shaping you until now. Maybe you've been carrying things in silence for so long, it just felt normal. But something inside you paused long enough to listen, to notice. And that's not small. That's sacred. You've walked through a quiet inventory of the mind, the heaviness, the distractions, the voices that don't sound like love. And somewhere in the middle of it all, God was gently speaking, not over the noise, but through it. Not with pressure, but with presence. You see, God doesn't just want to fix your thoughts. He wants to sit with you in them. He wants to dwell in your mind like a trusted friend, not a visiting guest. A safe place, a steady hand, a daily reminder that you don't have to sort everything out alone. Psalm 139:2 says, You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. He sees it all, every anxious loop, every flash of memory, every unspoken ache, and still he stays close. He doesn't turn away. He draws nearer. And that is the kind of love that renews us. You don't need to leave this moment with all the answers. You don't need to have it all figured out. All you need is a willingness to return, again and again, back to the quiet, back to the truth, back to the shepherd of your soul. The world may not get quieter, life may not slow down, but your mind can learn a new rhythm, one shaped by grace, by patience, by peace. A rhythm that doesn't panic when the future looks uncertain. A rhythm that chooses to trust before it understands. Philippians 4:09 tells us, "Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." Let that be your prayer, not for a perfect mind, but for a practiced peace. So today, if your thoughts begin to wander, let them wander toward truth. If you feel overwhelmed, come back to stillness. And if old voices rise up again, remind yourself whose voice leads you now. You are not lost. You are not too late. You are not beyond healing. You are deeply known, fiercely loved, and gently renewed, one thought at a time. And this ... this could be your new beginning. Amen.